both their pious and impious activities. Generally they get the result of the pious activities first, then the result of their impious activities. So they go to the heavenly planets and experience the result of their pious activities, and then when their pious activities are exalted, they fall down to the hellish planets. In the heavenly planets, everybody has a garland of flowers that remains fresh all the time, until their time is up. When their time in heaven is up, the garland withers. And it's described that when the garland withers, everybody that they've been partying with, everybody that they've been enjoying with, turns their back and like just ignores them. Because they know that pretty soon the representatives of Yamaraj are going to come and take this person away. And they don't want their mood of enjoyment to be disturbed by this. So the person goes to the heavenly planets first, and then to the hellish planets. So in extraordinary cases, one gets to choose. For example, Yudhishthira is described in Mahabharata, that Yudhishthira, after leaving he didn't leave his body, he went in the very same body to the heavenly planets. And he talked to Yamaraj. And Yamaraj said, well, do you want to experience, or no, Indra said, do you want to experience the results of your pious activities first or your impious activities first? And Yudhishthira said, well, I can't remember any impious activities, so let me experience that first. And, oh, by the way, where are my brothers and my mother? And Indra said, oh, they're in hell. And Yudhishthira said, no, that's not possible. I don't believe it. Let me see. I want to see this. So Indra gave a messenger, a Brahmana, and Brahmana took Yudhishthira down into the hellish planets. And then he saw his brothers and his mother and his wife, their wife, in a hellish suffering condition. And at this time, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. At this time, Yudhishthira became extremely angry, and he cursed Dharma. He said, this Dharma, if this leads to these righteous people suffering in hell, that I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of Dharma. I don't want to know anything about it. He cursed Dharma because of this. And then at that moment, the illusion of hell disappeared, and he saw that actually he was still in the heavenly planets, and his brothers and wife and mother were they were gods and goddesses in heaven. And he said, well, what was that all about? And Indra explained, because you are a Kshatriya, and your duty involved hurting others in the name of Dharma, you had to see hell. Even though you were completely righteous and you have no fault. Because you were hurting others, that was your duty. You had to experience some taste of pain, some taste of retribution, some punishment. So you had to see hell. Like that. So you see, even somebody like Yudhishthira, who is completely faultless, completely perfect, because his duty involved giving some pain to others, he had to have at least a little taste of hell. But what to speak of people who spend their whole lives giving pain to others? I mean, their destination is really, really horrible. We don't even want to think about it. So we should be very cautious, very careful, not to give pain to others, but to give others the tools to reach self-realization. You see? Everything in this material world, all material activities, even if you're very careful, have some bad karma attached to them. For example, you may be a hi-fi enthusiast and think, oh, this is very nice. Huh? I listen to these records, beautiful records of classical music. Huh? But what you don't know is that the diamonds, the industrial diamonds used in the hi-fi needle come from the slave camps in Tanzania or something like this, or Africa somewhere. Tanzania is in Australia. But in Africa, where people labor hard under like back-breaking slavery conditions, indentured workers and like this. I mean, you can't imagine. And everything. Somebody was just saying there's some mineral which is used in high-tech equipment like computers, making the chips, that comes from these only like a handful of mines in Africa. And these mines are under the control of these really despotic governments. And the people there, I mean, it's practically like a prison camp, the conditions that they work in. Huh? So everything in this world has some karma associated. Even the milk that you buy in the store. Huh? I mean, a lot of people who are vegans don't eat milk. And if you ask them why, they say, well, because the cows in the dairies, when they can't give a lot of milk and their production is decreasing, they're slaughtered. This is perfectly true. And so the karma involved in the slaughter of these cows is there in the milk that they produce. See? And of course the key, the antidote for that is to offer them as prasadam. Just like the antidote for the bad karma associated with high-tech equipment and stuff like that is to use them in Krishna's service. See, if we can use these things in Krishna's service, they become purified. They become spiritualized. See? Because try to understand, if we have the intelligence that comes from drinking milk, then we can preach more effectively. If we have these tools, these powerful communication tools based on high tech, then we can convince more people to become devotees and give up these horrible practices. You see? If enough of the world becomes devotees, then we don't need this stuff anymore. Huh? We can just go down the village and have kirtan and yay, you know, that's great. Simple life. But because the world is in an emergency situation and there are very, very few devotees, we have to take up these powerful tools that give us as much leverage as possible. Every day, over 1,000 people see our videos on the internet. If I was to go and try to find 1,000 people to preach to, and then, you know, spend an hour or two talking to each and every one of them, you know, I wouldn't have time to eat or sleep. Actually, I couldn't do it. It's humanly impossible to go out and talk to 1,000 people every day. There's not enough time in the day. But through the technology, we can do it, and we should do it, even though there might be some unpalatable or impure aspect connected with the technology, because it enables us to follow these principles of giving our gifts. See? Giving charitable gifts to others. The greatest gift is transcendental knowledge. If one has transcendental knowledge, then everything else becomes possible. If one does not have transcendental knowledge, then nothing is possible. You're only going to be stuck in this material world and pushed around by the modes of material nature and your karma. So please pay attention and very carefully try to understand these things, these principles that we talk about, and how to apply them in your life. And then your whole life will become wonderful. So what I like everyone to do is to put their questions from what I just said. Write your questions on the chat. And then we'll address the questions after we chant Vishnu Sahasranam. Okay? Om. Om. Shri Vaishampayana Uvacha Shruktva Dharmana Sheshena Pavanani Cha Sarvashaha Yudhishthira Shantanavam Punareva Bhyabhashata Yudhishthira Uvacha Kimekam Daivatam Loke Kingvapyekam Parayanam Stuvanta Kankamarchanta Prapnuyurmanava Shubham Ko Dharma Sarva Dharma